I don't know how many of you have heard of a brand new law here in the state of Tennessee, which is this law we're the only state in the country that has this law. It's a new DUI law. It's 1834. And basically the premise is if you decide to get behind the wheel and drive drunk and you hit another vehicle causing the death of a driver, and that driver has children, you are responsible for paying child support until that child reaches the majority of 18 years of age. Now, I don't know a lot of people who have heard about this, but we're going to have a couple of attorneys on to chat about this a little bit. Pros and cons. Is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? Or are there any hiccups involved? Bill Walk and Joe Smith will be joining me in just a few minutes to talk about this new DUI law, as I mentioned, the pros and the cons. There might be a couple of things that come to mind immediately. Most people would hear that and go, yeah, that's a pretty good law. That's a pretty good law. But ... We'll talk about it in a couple of minutes. First things first, as we went to break, we were talking about this new law that is the first of its kind in the state of Tennessee and the first of its kind in any state in the country. And it's a brand new DUI law. So I wanted to have a couple of guys that I know, attorneys, who can sort of, kind of walk us through it and basically, what's good about it, if anything, and what's bad about it as well. So please welcome to Real Talk Memphis, Bill Walk and Joe Smith. Gentlemen, I see you both. It's good to see you tonight.
Good to see you, Chip. Thanks for having us on.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, how's it going?
Doing well, doing well. So listen, thank you guys for coming. And, we talked a little bit about this law, and I don't think, first of all, a lot of people know about it. It's kind of one of those laws that just kind of popped in the first of the year, and it's like, oh, okay, well, here it is. And on its face, as I said, this is generally for somebody who decides to get behind the wheel driving drunk, and they hit a vehicle, cause the death of an individual, and that individual, the victim, has children or minor children under the age of 18. Consequently, that particular suspect is then responsible for paying child support until that child gets to be the majority of 18. Am I correct in that?
Yes, you are. It's at least my reading of it. Joe, you agree?
Yes, that's right.
Okay, so now, on its face, when someone hears that, I think the first instinct is to say, you know what, that's pretty good. That doesn't sound like a bad deal at all in terms of, the responsibility. But there's a lot more to it than that. I mean, in terms of now, Bill, you deal with tort law.
Yes,
am I correct?
Yes, I do.
For those of us who are the uninformed, like your humble host here, explain what tort law is.
Well, tort is probably commonly known as personal injury law.
Personal injury. Okay.
It falls under most of that category when you're injured by some action or negligence of another, whether it be a slip and fall, a car wreck, medical negligence, legal negligence, some kind of negligent act that causes bodily or economic harm to another. Okay. And so that's one of those cases where in a car wreck, you've got your classic damages where you've got your medical bills, you've got maybe your pain and suffering, you've got loss of wages, loss of future income. But this is a new addition where it's if you kill the guy, then he's got or girl or lady, they've got a potential claim of damages against the person who caused it for child support for their minor children.
Now, Joe, when you look at this on its face, and as far as I'm concerned, there are pros and cons to every situation or circumstance. What do you see when you look at this new law?
Well, I see a novel attempt to address a problem that a lot of us face. Drunk driving is a bad thing, and I think the legislator in this instance was trying to come up with a way to deter drunk drivers. But the problem with this law is that, I'm not so sure it was thought through in the sense of its application. For instance, it says it's child support or child maintenance. And the question is, does that really deter people from drinking and driving? I'm a family law attorney, so I've had the pleasure of representing individuals that are on the hook for child support. And oftentimes, the individual may not have any money to pay child support.
True.
So the other issue that a victim's family has to figure out is it best to go through child support to be made whole again? And if so, do you really think that this person is really going to pay the child support?
Now, I'm looking at that in one particular way. We have a lot of folks out here, young people out here stealing cars every 5 minutes.
Right.
And,
right.
They may not have any kind of income. They may be high schoolers. They may be whatever. And they may not have any income. But if they have an accident that causes the death of another individual who has children, who has minor children, and they're not going to be able to satisfy that debt. So, Bill, I'll ask you, in terms of that, where do we go? Joe mentioned it. What are the alternatives here, or are there alternatives here?
Well, there is an alternative for you to protect yourself, and it doesn't always taste good going down like some bad medicine. But the real answer is to make sure that you have plenty of insurance, to have underinsured, an umbrella policy, uninsured motorist coverage. Now, the insurance companies have never heard of this law yet, but they will probably quickly adapt to it and probably try to exclude this as potential damages. But I can't imagine, because this law is so new, that in Tennessee that they've found out a way to exclude that. And so if the legislature really wanted to help, they would make it so the insurance companies couldn't exclude this as coverage in a policy. So that would be just another element of damages. If the gentleman you're referring to, that's 19-year-old kid, no insurance, no money, no assets, then if you've got yourself insured, then potentially you could still recover that child support or that loss of income through your own insurance.
Well, that's interesting. In terms of that, and like you said that, maybe the folks here, it's so new, they hadn't really heard of it, the insurance companies. But Joe, on the other side of that, as a family law attorney, in a situation like this, what would you recommend to a particular client?
Well, one, I would recommend that, really evaluate your options. If this is a victim's family, I would advise them that, child support may not be the best way to go about if you're really thinking about being made whole. Of course, there's no way that one can replace that level and being lost.
Exactly.
But you don't want to add insult to injury by thinking that you'll have some type of support from this person that robbed you of that loved one, when really they probably can't do that. So just because you're on child support, there's no guarantee that you'll get that, given that if you're trying to force it, that person has to be found to be in a position to actually pay that child support. And if they aren't, you're in a bad position.
Well, this sounds, again, and I think Bill described it earlier as maybe not quite as thought through as it could, because in any situation like this, me as Joe Q citizen, if you create harm to my family, there needs to be a lesson learned behind this. Or if you're going to have a law like this, I would assume it would be served as a deterrent for maybe you thinking twice about getting behind the wheel and driving drunk. Either one of you buy that argument?
I don't buy that argument. It's Joe said a second ago, and Joe knows everything he's talking about. It's got good motives behind the law, but no one's is sitting at Silky Sullivan's on Bill Street and go, man, let me not have that extra cocktail before I get in the car, because I may have to pay for someone's child support. Just like, in my view, the death penalty doesn't deter people from committing murder. I mean, society, we may determine that's a good penalty, but as far as deterrence, I frankly don't buy it as a deterrent.
Joe, you agree with that?
I agree. I don't think it's necessarily a deterrence. I think it's an admirable way to try to address the issue, but to really actually deter individuals from drinking and driving, I don't think that's going to be something that's on one person's mind when they say, oh, if I get caught, I might have to pay child support.
How many people even know this law exists? I mean, how many people that drink and drive will even be aware of this law?
Well, that's, you see, and that's another thing too. I mean, it was rolled out to me pretty quietly in terms of all of this. And I think that really is the caveat. I mean, when somebody is in a situation like this and goes to court, they go, wait, what? But Bill, you said at the beginning, there really isn't, I mean, both of you agree that there really isn't a lot of teeth behind all of this. But one more time, Bill, in terms of what a person should do in a situation, if they find themselves in a situation like this, to protect themselves, at least from the financial end, in reference to the insurance side of things.
Yeah, I mean, it really is. It's that way. It's not just in that. I would just say we've got so many uninsured drivers in this city. We've got so many people that don't have financial responsibility. People come into me all day, every day, and they're hit by people that don't have insurance.
Sure.
And so whether it's a DUI or not, and believe me, I'm not a fan of the insurance company, so I'm not here selling for the insurance companies,
Sure.
but they are the ones. Having good insurance protects yourself. It's not necessarily fair that you have to bear the cost of it, but in the long run, if something happens to you, you're going to be glad you have that insurance as opposed to relying on the other driver out there to have it.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate you coming on, because again, on its face, it sounds good. I agree with both of you. Not many people know about this law. So, the effectiveness of it, immediately comes to question in reference to what you were saying, Joe, you in terms of all this. But as a family law attorney, if someone were to come to you with this, hey, what's this deal with this new law? I think, what would be the first thing you would tell them in terms of maybe trying to consider one way or another?
Well, like Bill says, best way to go about it is make sure that you have insurance yourself. And I wouldn't necessarily rely on this law as to actually replace that support that, one would receive if that person didn't pass away.
Very interesting. We'll see how all this plays out down the road. Bill Walk, Joe Smith, both fine legal minds in this town. Thank you guys for coming on the show and kind of giving us a bit of clarity on a semi-confusing legal issue. But nonetheless, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you guys. And I look to talk to you down the road again.
Love it. Chip, thanks for having us on. We really appreciate it.
Thanks, Chip.
Talking to you.
You guys have a great night. Thank you so much.